Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you the 5th wave of DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's Booster Course Pass. This one comes with 3 new characters, being Kamek from Mario Kart Tour, Wiggler from Mario Kart 7, and Petey Piranha from Mario Kart Double Dash. I'm not much of a guy for new characters being in a Mario Kart game, so let's move right on to the tracks. We have Athens Dash from Mario Kart Tour, Daisy Cruiser from Mario Kart Double Dash, Moonview Highway from Mario Kart Wii, a brand new course, Squeaky Clean Sprint, Los Angeles Laps from Mario Kart Tour, Sunset Wilds from Mario Kart Super Circuit, Koopa Cape from Mario Kart Wii, and Vancouver Velocity from Mario Kart Tour. Yes, another pack that has 3 tour tracks. Compared to the rest of the tracks from Mario Kart Tour that are based on real-world locations, Athens Dash feels considerably different because it feels more like a bunch of ruins and pillars as opposed to being in a bustling city. You start out with a very awkward slope down onto a couple of pillars. I say awkward because as you drive down you see a wave of black across the bottom of the screen, which probably means they didn't program that part of the map well enough, but the rest of the map is pretty solid. Not a whole lot stands out, besides the fact that it has a lot more brown than the usual Mario Kart Tour city track, but it is a lot of fun, and I had a blast on this track on 200cc, especially in the third lap when you're trying to dodge those boulders. Yes, I did terrible in this footage. I'm gonna humble myself by keeping that in. Overall, not a terrible tour track, but also nothing that stands out as being overly remarkable. Daisy Cruiser is such a fan favorite amongst the Double Dash community that it came back in Mario Kart 7. And one of the coolest things that the Mario Kart 7 version did was that it allowed underwater racing. So the pool at the start of the cruiser could actually be driven through, and then when you were going through the hallway after going past the dining room, you'd be able to go into an underwater storage area to get a shortcut. Pretty much all of that has been preserved here with some nice added graphical fidelity to it. I feel like it's overall a much brighter type of atmosphere thanks to the new lighting engine. I like how when you're going through the dining room there are actually guests seated at the tables. But I do feel like this stage still feels kind of cramped. Admittedly, the dining room is far more open than it was in Double Dash, but there's still not a whole lot of room to race around, even on the lower CCs. So while it's fun when you're inside the ship, when you're outside, it just doesn't have enough room to race around. Moonview Highway is mostly the same as it was on Mario Kart Wii, albeit with the new lighting engine making it look significantly better. It looked like it was kind of washed out on the Wii version. There's still the traffic driving towards you that threatens to knock you off the road. They've added a little bit of scaffolding to some of the edges early on so that you don't fall off on 200cc. Didn't stop me. And they've also made the music much more dynamic as it changes depending on where you are in the track, which is a really cool touch that I didn't think they'd do for the retro tracks. Other than that, it's more or less the same as it was in Mario Kart Wii, just with more advertisements on the boards once you get to the more busy section of the city. I also like how in 200cc the thrill of already going fast and trying to get as many boost pads as you can just makes it even more exhilarating. Just don't try to do that shortcut on the upper part of the initial highway section, or that ramp is not going to catch you. When I first saw Squeaky Clean Sprint revealed, I thought that this was the first time in the entire Booster Course Pass that one of the new tracks actually looked like it was on par with the graphics of the original Mario Kart 8. And now that I've played it, I think that still stands. Squeaky Clean Sprint is such an amazing way to capture something as simple as a bathroom and turn it into a workable race course. You start out by going past a sink and just doing a simple trick out of getting out of the water, and then you move on past a bunch of towels to an area where there's an optional sponge-based road that you can go on if you're really good at driving in midair. Then you get sucked down a drain and have to trick off of some screws. Then you get to a fan which tries to blow you closer to a trick ramp while also avoiding soap suds, only for you to trick off of a gliding ramp to go over the toilet to get back to the initial loop. But once you get to laps 2 and 3, then the toilet starts spewing water, which allows you to get a new shortcut. There's a lot of visual flair. There's a lot of little details, like a box of bandages being an obstacle, and the wallpaper looking like the cloudscape in Super Mario Bros. I also like how there's a lot of variety in how you can drive, with lots of shortcuts and alternate paths, while at the same time still providing a mostly similar experience no matter what you do. It's visually stunning, the music is quite spectacular, and I hope that if they make a new track in the final wave of Mario Kart 8 DLC, that it can be up to this track's standards. Los Angeles Laps is probably the weirdest track I've encountered as far as another tour track that's based on a real location. You start out in this very pleasant beach area that feels like a place I'd really like to go to if I had enough sunscreen. But then after that, you're mostly just driving around on a lot of roads, and then really abruptly on the 3rd lap, the scenery changes so that it's mostly brown and you're going through what looks like a construction site. It looks kind of ugly and doesn't have the justification of being based off of chocolate like Choco Mountain did. It's not a bad track, but it's one of the more bland and forgettable of the tour tracks besides the opening beach area. Nothing offensive, but also just not a whole lot of visual variety or something to spice it up. Sunset Wilds was a fan favorite in Mario Kart Super Circuit. Granted, I didn't play much of that game, but from what I heard, it was one of the most visually stunning tracks for its time. But it also had these shy guys that were dressed like native Indians and would get on top of your racer's face and obscure their view. They've toned it down a little bit here, as the Shy Guys are now just jolly old workers wearing worker hats and pickaxes. I overall think this track looks pretty nice, and it's a decent conversion to not being ridiculously flat like it was on the GBA. But at the same time, it has these colorful blocks around the edges that look really out of place in a desert environment. Granted, Snowland kind of had that problem too, but at least it had the benefit of being a colorful winter stage, whereas this is supposed to be this desert in the sunset. And then these colorful blocks are just, I don't know, they feel like they don't mesh well with the existing color palette. Although that could just be me, I'm not exactly an artist, so feel free to disagree. I think that the sunset looks okay, but it doesn't look nearly as good as how it looked in Riverside Park in the previous wave. So this is another passable track. Definitely a very interesting history behind it, but not a track I'll probably be revisiting a lot, especially compared to how much I loved Calamari Desert. As much as I didn't really like Mario Kart Wii during my re-review, I really liked a lot of the courses in that game, especially Koopa Cape, because it had a lot of water currents that would make your kart or bike go faster, and it was quite exhilarating. Now that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has 200cc, it's even more fun. And I might even go so far as to say this is the best track to race on in 200cc, because it seems like it rewards optimizing speed really well, and 150cc it's okay, but 200 is where it's really at. You start out going through what looks like an overhang in a mountain. As you start up the race, you see a Koopa shell moving back and forth between the two ends of the finish line, and it made me wonder if perhaps they added that detail as a nod to Super Nintendo World. Then you move on to the water stream, of course, and then you go into the pipe, and that's where it switches to both anti-gravity and underwater. Now, this was a bit controversial in Mario Kart 7, because they did make it underwater, but they removed the water current and the electrical zappers that made it so much fun in Mario Kart Wii. This track still doesn't have the water current or the electric zappers, but to make up for it, it does have one of those, I don't know what they're called, those spinny things in anti-gravity sections that you can use to get a speed boost, and a half-pipe section, along with being able to trick off of the edges of the pipe. But one thing that I found really weird is that in the opening cutscene for Koopa Cape, there are shown to be 2 pipes. So I thought, oh, that's cool, having a totally alternate route that you can go on, just like in Waluigi Stadium, but I never figured out how to get into that other pipe. Once you get out of the pipe, it ends with a fantastic view of a trick ramp next to a waterfall, and again, this is so satisfying to do on 200cc. Overall, one of the best courses in Mario Kart Wii. May not have the exhilarating ride through the pipe like it did in the original game, but at least it's still such a blast to play on the hardest difficulty here. Vancouver Velocity has a really cool visual style. It takes place at night, and it also has like parts of it that are in the winter time and parts that are in the autumn. And overall, the trees are really well designed, and the effects work really well to present a track that's really fun to look at, but you don't have time to look at everything because you're trying to race so much. As far as parts of it that stand out, I really like the sections where you drive over the bridges in the first lap. At first there's a standard suspension bridge, but then after that you enter an anti-gravity section on a bridge, which completely changes up the track, and it makes me feel like Nintendo put way more effort into bringing this track into the laws of Mario Kart 8 as opposed to just ripping it straight out of Mario Kart Tour like it seems like tour tracks in the past were. Apart from that, it's just fun to look at. The hockey rink section was pretty cool, but it doesn't last long enough before you're back to the next set piece. I don't think that this was the best way to end this wave. I wish they would have ended with Squeaky Clean Sprint, just like I wish the previous wave had ended with Yoshi's Island, but still, definitely one of the better Mario Kart City tracks, so I guess if they couldn't do Squeaky Clean Sprint, this was probably the second best way to end it off. In conclusion, I thought this wave was pretty okay. Most of the tracks were decent. Squeaky Clean Sprint was amazing, and Koopa Cape was so much fun to race through on 200cc. But otherwise, there wasn't as much of a mind-blowing leap forward in quality like Wave 4 had. They also didn't have that amazing push of a retro throwback like Yoshi's Island did. Squeaky Clean Sprint, incredible track, but it also wasn't based on an existing Mario spin-off property. And I always love it when Mario Kart 8 would introduce other franchises like Hyrule Circuit or Big Blue. So it definitely felt like it was a step down from the previous wave, but still better than the other waves by far, because the graphics were really nice for the most part, and it seemed like Nintendo is actually getting pretty darn close to passing the bar set by the original Mario Kart 8 standards. I have very high hopes for the last wave, and I really hope that they tone down the amount of tour tracks, because they're not bad, but I want to see more Mario stuff. I want to see these fan favorite tracks coming back. I mean, does anyone think Mario Kart Tour has fan favorite tracks? If you like Mario Kart Tour, let me know in the comments. Please remember that I read and respond to pretty much all of my comments, so I would love to hear your thoughts and critiques. Special thanks to Matthew Rakowski, Sploon Ghost Splatcat, Scooter Duels, and I think Irene. It says that she's a patron, but it doesn't show that she's paid me anything, so maybe she's just like, hey, I'm supporting you behind the scenes kind of deal. Anyway, hope you all have a wonderful day, and until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye!